Never let anyone bother you. Machiavelli. There comes a moment in life when you realize that most of your suffering doesn't come from the world itself, but from your reaction to it, from the way you let people enter your mind, disturb your peace, and dictate how you feel. You give them permission to touch the invisible strings of your emotions, and then you wonder why you're exhausted, angry, or afraid. Machiavelli once observed that the strongest man is not the one who conquers others, but the one who cannot be emotionally conquered by anyone. His calmness was his fortress, his indifference, his weapon. You see, the true art of power is not domination over others, it's mastery over your inner responses. When you no longer react to provocation, you become unpredictable. And when you are unpredictable, you are untouchable. Today, you live in a world that feeds on reaction. Social networks, gossip, politics, everything is built to make you react. Because if they can control your reaction, they can control your focus, your time, your energy, even your destiny. But Machiavelli knew something most people still refuse to understand. Whoever angers you owns you. The one who can disturb your peace is, in that instant, your master. And this is why the greatest form of control is emotional control. So let's go deeper into this silent power. The power of becoming unbothered. Not in a cold or disconnected way, but in the way of a mind that sees through illusions. Imagine being able to walk through the noise of the world untouched. People gossip, they criticize, they project their insecurities onto you. And yet, you remain still, calm, grounded. You understand their behavior without taking it personally. You observe without absorbing. That's the kind of inner authority Machiavelli hinted at when he said that men should appear open and human, but remain inwardly composed and unshaken. Throughout this video, we'll uncover how to develop that same unbothered presence, the kind that commands respect without needing to ask for it. We'll see how Machiavelli's philosophy, though centuries old, still reveals timeless psychological truths about human behavior and manipulation. You'll understand how to protect your mental energy, how to train your emotional responses, and how to build an aura of calm dominance that no one can pierce. And by the end of this journey, you'll discover something profound. Being unbothered is not indifference, it's enlightenment. It's the moment your mind becomes a fortress no one can breach. So stay until the end, because there's a hidden truth waiting for you, one that will shift the way you see power, emotion, and control forever. Before we begin, I want you to write this in the comments. I choose peace over reaction. This simple sentence marks the first step toward mastering your inner world. Like Machiavelli, you're about to learn that real strength doesn't come from fighting every battle. It comes from choosing which ones deserve your silence. To understand why Machiavelli's ideas still echo in the depths of modern psychology, we must first return to the turbulent Italy of the 16th century. Florence was not a place of peace. It was a battlefield of minds. Behind every handshake was a hidden blade, behind every smile, a scheme. Machiavelli lived in a world where showing emotion could cost you power, where being too kind, too reactive, too visible in your feelings meant becoming prey. His writings were not the cold teachings of a manipulator. They were survival strategies for those who lived surrounded by political predators. He who controls his nature, Machiavelli implied, controls his fate. And nature, in this sense, meant emotion, the most volatile force within the human soul. Philosophically, Machiavelli broke the illusion that morality and power always walk hand in hand. He understood that emotion, when left unguarded, blinds the intellect. A ruler who lets anger or pity decide his actions becomes the puppet of his own impulses. So, he taught something few dared to accept. Emotional control is not a suppression of humanity. It is the foundation of wisdom. Only a man who can stand still while storms rage around him can see reality for what it truly is. This is why his philosophy aligns, in essence, with ancient Stoicism and even Buddhist discipline. The idea that peace is not found by escaping the world, but by mastering one's mind within it. In nature, this truth is visible everywhere. Look at a mountain. It stands unshaken by the winds, unmoved by the rain. The storm may roar, the trees may fall, but the mountain remains. Power in its purest form is stability. The lion does not react to every noise in the jungle. He moves only when it is necessary. This is the natural order Machiavelli understood, that true dominance lies in selective reaction. The one who reacts to everything reveals his weakness. The one who chooses when to respond demonstrates control. But as centuries passed, this knowledge was misunderstood. People saw Machiavelli as heartless, manipulative, or cruel, when in truth, he was describing the psychological armor necessary to survive in a chaotic world. In our modern age, this armor is needed more than ever. Today, emotional warfare doesn't happen in royal courts. It happens on screens, in offices, in relationships. Everyone is trying to provoke a reaction, because reactions are energy. Whoever can make you react can drain your strength. And that's why you must learn to be still, to become like the mountain, like the lion, calm, silent, and sure of your power. Machiavelli's lesson, stripped of politics, is universal. Never give anyone the power to disturb your peace. To remain unbothered is to remain sovereign. It's not about indifference, it's about clarity. The clarity to see manipulation without participating in it, to recognize noise without letting it enter your soul. That is the essence of timeless power. When you begin to free yourself from the control of reaction, something strange happens. The world seems louder, more chaotic, as if testing your new calm. You'll notice people trying harder to pull you into their storms. But Machiavelli would tell you this is the test of the strong, the test of composure. Power always reveals itself when others lose theirs. In this part, you and I will explore the hidden structure of emotional power, the invisible architecture that determines who controls whom in every interaction. You'll see how to reclaim your focus, fortify your peace, and embody the quiet superiority of the truly unbothered. First principle, your energy is a currency. Every glance, every argument, every sigh is an exchange of energy. Most people live in emotional debt. They spend their calmness on others' chaos. Machiavelli would call this bad governance of the self. A prince who squanders his treasury on meaningless wars weakens his kingdom. A mind that reacts to every provocation empties its inner treasury. The lesson, guard your energy as a ruler guards his gold. Before you react, ask yourself, am I investing or wasting? Most confrontations are invitations to donate your peace to someone starving for attention. When you learn to say nothing, to let silence speak, you deny them that feast. Silence becomes your interest, and composure your profit. Second principle, perception is the true battlefield. Machiavelli wrote that appearance often matters more than truth. Emotionally, this means it's not what happens to you, but how you appear to handle it that defines power. When you flinch, defend, explain, or justify, you announce vulnerability. The unbothered person understands that calm posture is louder than any argument. Think of a candle flame in a dark room. It draws all eyes without moving. When people see that their words cannot move you, they begin to doubt their own strength. This is the secret reversal of power, to make others uncertain while you remain certain within. In every encounter, remember, the stage is perception. Your stillness is the performance. Third principle, control the distance. Control the dynamic. Machiavelli taught rulers to control proximity. Too much distance breeds rebellion. Too much closeness breeds disrespect. The same rule applies to your emotional life. You must know when to step back, not as an escape, but as a recalibration of authority. Distance creates clarity. When someone tries to provoke you, they expect your immediate reaction. A pause disarms them. Space is a form of power. A single breath, a calm gaze, a delayed answer, all remind the world that you are governed from within, not from impulse. To live unbothered is to create sacred distance between stimulus and response, and in that distance lies freedom. Fourth principle, learn the art of strategic indifference. Indifference, for Machiavelli, was not ignorance, it was calculation. To pretend to care little while seeing everything is an art. The emotionally weak confuse reaction with involvement. They think passion means power, but passion without discipline becomes a leash. Strategic indifference allows you to stay observant without being owned by what you observe. You listen, but you don't absorb. You see the insult, but you refuse to host it. You become like water, flowing around the obstacle instead of fighting it. This is not coldness, it's elegance. To master indifference is to understand that your attention is sacred, and not everyone deserves it. Fifth principle, detach from the theatre of validation. Every era has its stage. In Machiavelli's time, it was the court. Today, it's the screen. Most people live performing for approval, terrified of being misunderstood. They let comments, likes, or gossip define their worth. But Machiavelli would whisper, "If you need the crowd's applause, you are already their servant. To be unbothered, you must withdraw your soul from the theatre of validation. Detach from needing to be seen as right, good, or successful. Let the results speak." A quiet life of discipline will always outshine loud displays of insecurity. Remember, applause fades, inner respect endures. At this point, I want you to pause and reflect. Who in your life has mastered the art of making you react? Write their initials in your mind, not to hate them, but to free yourself from them. Because every time you react, you build a bridge for them to cross into your peace. Cut that bridge, silently. Sixth principle, study the mechanism of projection. Machiavelli observed that men judge others by their own nature. The cruel see cruelty everywhere. The weak call others ruthless. Understanding this, you'll stop taking attacks personally. When someone mocks your calm, they reveal their turmoil. When they accuse you, they confess themselves. Projection is the oldest trick of human nature. By decoding it, you remain detached. Instead of asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" ask, "What are they showing me about themselves?" The unbothered mind translates insult into information, hostility into data. Each provocation becomes a mirror in which others expose their hidden wounds. Seventh principle, emotional. Alchemy, turn reaction into strategy. Machiavelli believed that a wise ruler uses every event to his advantage. Likewise, every emotional trigger can be refined into insight. When you feel anger rising, don't suppress it. Observe it. Ask, what expectation was just challenged? Maybe you wanted control, approval, fairness. By naming it, you dissolve its power. This is emotional alchemy, transmuting raw reaction into conscious response. The unbothered do not suppress, they transform. What was once a chain becomes fuel. The next time someone provokes you, imagine the heat of emotion turning into light, sharpening your awareness. That is how power matures, through inner refinement, not outer retaliation. Eighth principle, never explain, never defend. Machiavelli warned that explanations invite weakness. When you justify yourself, you hand your authority to the listener. The wise speak only when necessary, and even then, with simplicity. Most conflicts are not about truth, they're about dominance. Silence denies your opponent a battlefield. If you are right, time will testify. If you are wrong, talking will not save you. To be unbothered is to value your peace over your reputation. Remember, explanation is a form of pleading. Stillness is a form of command. Practice saying less, meaning more. Your serenity will frighten those who thrive on noise. Ninth principle, build your inner court. Every ruler has advisors. Your thoughts are yours. Some serve you, some betray you. Machiavelli advised princes to choose counselors wisely. So must you choose which thoughts to entertain. Doubt, fear, comparison, they are the traitors whispering in your court. The unbothered mind replaces them with discipline, observation, and gratitude. Each morning, hold counsel with your better thoughts. Ask yourself, which ideas will rule my day? When your inner court is loyal, no external rebellion can overthrow your peace. Governance begins within. 10th principle, detach from emotional debt. Emotional debt is the weight of unhealed reactions, the grudges, the expectations, the silent resentments you carry. Machiavelli's advice to a prince was to settle his accounts quickly, to clear his record of enemies. You must do the same internally. Forgive, not for them, but for sovereignty. Every resentment keeps you bound to a past disturbance. The unbothered person forgives strategically, to reclaim energy, not to excuse betrayal. Release the debt. Emotional freedom is the ultimate wealth. By now, you begin to feel the architecture of inner power taking shape. You can sense that being unbothered is not passive. It's active awareness, deliberate restraint, elegant control. It's the still lake that reflects every image but is moved by none. In this calm, you become impossible to manipulate. Pause again and write in the comments, "My silence is power." This affirmation is not weakness. It is the quiet roar of self-mastery. You have now seen the outer structure of control, the principles that make the world's chaos lose its grip on you. But Machiavelli knew that mastery is not just a matter of rules. It is a matter of nature. He warned that even the greatest ruler falls if he forgets to rule himself. In this part, we go deeper, into the quiet spaces where the ego hides, where your peace is tested not by enemies, but by your own desires. What you'll discover here is not just how to remain unbothered by others, but how to remain unbothered by yourself. First paradox: power hides in softness. Machiavelli's name has become synonymous with cold calculation. Yet those who truly read him know he valued adaptability more than cruelty. A prince, he wrote, must be both lion and fox. The lion stands for strength, but the fox stands for softness, flexibility, awareness, timing. In life, those who never bend are the first to break. To be unbothered is to be soft in spirit yet firm in boundaries. When you stop defending every opinion, when you let people misjudge you without needing to correct them, you gain the strength of the river. It flows around every obstacle, yet carves mountains with time. Power is not always visible. It is often disguised as serenity. Second paradox: sensitivity is not weakness. To Machiavelli, knowledge of human nature was the highest intelligence. He studied people deeply, their fears, their vanity, their hunger for approval. To sense these currents within others, you must first sense them within yourself. Emotional awareness is not the enemy of detachment, it is its foundation. The unbothered person is not numb. They are perceptive. They feel everything, but they choose what deserves a response. This is the ultimate refinement: to have emotions, but not be owned by them. Sensitivity without control is chaos. Control without sensitivity is tyranny. Between them lies wisdom. Third paradox: the ego is the true enemy. Machiavelli observed that men lose empires not because of others, but because of pride. The ego, he warned, is the most skillful manipulator of all. It whispers, prove yourself, respond, show them who you are. And the moment you obey, you lose command. To be unbothered is to disobey the ego. You must learn to feel the sting of insult and yet remain silent, not out of fear, but because you see through the illusion. The ego wants reaction. The spirit wants clarity. When you stop defending your image, you become untouchable. The world can strike at the illusion, but it cannot touch the essence. Fourth paradox: emotional withdrawal creates magnetism. It's one of Machiavelli's least understood secrets. Absence intensifies presence. He noticed that rulers who revealed too much of themselves lost reverence. Similarly, in emotional dynamics, when you withdraw your attention, your silence becomes magnetic. People crave reaction. It confirms their existence. When you offer none, they begin to feel your absence as a form of power. The less you chase, the more they are drawn. The unbothered person understands that attention is the purest currency of influence. Give it deliberately and your value multiplies. Give it carelessly and you become common. Fifth paradox: control begins with acceptance. Machiavelli would often say that reality, no matter how cruel, must be seen clearly. Most suffering begins when we fight what is. You cannot be unbothered if you are at war with reality. To control your mind, you must accept what you cannot alter. Acceptance is not surrender, it's strategy. Once you stop demanding that the world be different, you free the energy needed to master yourself. The unbothered are not detached from life. They are deeply engaged, but without illusion. They see clearly, act wisely, and let go quickly. Their peace is not ignorance, it's alignment. Now pause for a moment and write this in the comments. I release what I cannot control. This phrase is a declaration of power, not defeat. It means you have stepped outside the battlefield of endless reaction and into the realm of inner governance. Sixth principle: predictability, is a trap. Machiavelli knew that the predictable man is the easiest to manipulate. When people can guess your response, they can control it. To remain unbothered, you must become strategically unpredictable, not emotionally unstable, but unreadable. Sometimes respond with silence, sometimes with humor, sometimes not at all. Let your calmness be consistent, but your methods invisible. A predictable pattern is a leash others can pull. Break that leash with variety, and your presence becomes a puzzle they can't solve. Seventh principle: emotional detachment is not isolation. Being unbothered does not mean withdrawing from love, friendship, or empathy. It means entering them consciously. Machiavelli taught that alliances based on necessity endure longer than those based purely on sentiment. In the same way, your relationships should arise from choice, not emotional dependency. Love freely, but never at the expense of your peace. Compassion is powerful when it flows from strength, not need. When your worth no longer depends on others' moods, you can connect more deeply because you are free. Eighth principle: the mirror of reaction. The world is a mirror reflecting your state of mind. If you are irritated, you will find endless irritations. If you are calm, the same world softens. Machiavelli knew that perception molds politics. Modern psychology knows it molds experience. When someone disturbs your peace, they are showing you where your control ends. Instead of blaming them, thank them. They have revealed your next lesson. The unbothered person uses disturbance as feedback. Every trigger is a teacher. The stronger the reaction, the closer you are to mastery. Ninth principle: the power of the unanswered. One of the most Machiavellian techniques is the art of leaving things unresolved. A king who answers every accusation becomes a servant of public opinion. The same applies to emotional conflict. Let people wonder. Let them sit in their assumptions. When you resist the urge to explain, you create psychological space. That silence unsettles them more than any argument. The human mind hates unfinished stories. Your calm becomes the mystery they can't decode. And mystery, as Machiavelli knew, is half of influence. 10th principle: self-mastery is the ultimate revenge. When wronged, the instinct is to prove, to retaliate, to correct. But the unbothered person knows nothing torments the manipulator more than your evolution. When you improve, you contradict their narrative. When you rise in silence, you expose their weakness. Machiavelli would call this the long game, the art of ruling by outcome, not reaction. Revenge in its purest form is peace. You win not by destroying them, but by becoming untouchable to their reach. By now, you begin to sense that Machiavelli's teachings, often labeled dark, are in truth mirrors of light. They expose what most people avoid, that freedom is not granted by others, it is reclaimed from yourself. Before moving on, take this moment to comment. My peace is my strategy. It's not just a phrase, it's a declaration of alignment between your mind and your power. Up to now, you've learned the theory of inner sovereignty, the invisible architecture of calm that Machiavelli hinted at in every one of his words. But philosophy means little without practice. Knowledge without application is like a weapon left to rust. Machiavelli understood this well. He believed the prince must test ideas through action. Likewise, your composure must be exercised, trained, and refined through daily ritual. You do not become unbothered by accident. You become unbothered through deliberate conditioning of mind and behavior. Now let's translate this invisible power into visible mastery. What follows are practices designed not for monks or philosophers, but for those who live in the real world, where the provocations come disguised as family, work, or noise. These exercises will turn calmness from an idea into an instinct, from philosophy into reflex. First practice: the pause before the storm. Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors the prepared mind. The same applies to emotional storms. The moment you feel anger rise, you must create a sacred pause. Don't speak, don't move. Breathe once deeply. Feel the emotion like thunder gathering behind the ribs. Then silently ask, what do I gain by reacting? That question is a blade cutting through illusion. The pause transforms you from puppet to master. At first, it will feel unnatural, because your ego craves the drama of defense. But with repetition, the pause becomes instinctive. You will begin to see how 90% of human conflicts die in silence. When you pause, you take the reins back from the emotion that sought to ride you. Second practice, morning fortress. Ritual. Machiavelli believed that a ruler must begin each day with clarity of purpose. You can do the same through a morning ritual of mental sovereignty. Before looking at your phone or stepping into noise, sit still for 5 minutes. Breathe and imagine your mind as a fortress. Picture its gates closed. Then speak silently. Today, no one enters unless I allow it. This visualization sets your boundaries energetically. During the day, when someone tries to provoke you, recall that fortress. You'll feel the invisible walls of calm rise around you. This is not fantasy, it's conditioning. The mind obeys what it repeatedly imagines. Third practice, the art of selective response. You do not owe your reaction to everyone. Machiavelli taught that not every attack deserves an answer. Sometimes silence destroys more effectively than argument. Begin practicing selective response in small ways. When criticized, ask yourself, does this person have power over my life? If not, your response is unnecessary. When confronted with provocation, decide whether speaking would raise your value or diminish it. The unbothered mind learns to let silence finish what noise began. Over time, you will feel a deep satisfaction in the restraint itself. Reaction is cheap. Response is luxury. Fourth practice, the emotional audit. Every evening, before sleep, perform an emotional audit. Write down the moments you lost your peace that day. Ask, what pattern was triggered? What illusion was I defending? Perhaps it was the need to be right, to be admired, to be included. Each answer is a crack in your fortress. Repair it with awareness. Machiavelli said a wise ruler inspects his city each night for weaknesses. You must inspect your mind the same way. The next morning, walk through those same situations in imagination, but this time respond with calmness. Visual rehearsal reprograms emotional memory. Slowly, the world loses its ability to control you. Fifth practice, reclaiming the power of distance. Do not fear stepping back. Distance is not detachment, it is preservation. When a relationship, environment, or conversation drains your peace, withdraw strategically. Machiavelli advised princes to retreat when their presence no longer served their strength. The same principle applies to your spirit. Take a walk, stay silent for a day, or refuse to engage in predictable conflict. Your absence will speak louder than your defense. Emotional distance allows you to observe without being consumed. This is the geography of power. Knowing when to occupy and when to retreat. Sixth practice. Observation without absorption. Learn to see human behavior as a scientist, not as a victim. When someone tries to provoke you, mentally step outside the scene and narrate it. Here is a person projecting their pain. Here is my ego wanting to respond. The moment you describe instead of participate, you regain control. This detachment is not coldness, it's clarity. Machiavelli studied men as one studies storms, understanding their patterns without becoming soaked by them. You can do the same. Every insult becomes data. Every argument becomes research. Eventually, you'll realize that most people are not attacking you. They're revealing themselves. Seventh practice, the discipline of few words. Machiavelli admired conciseness, the ability to express power in minimal speech. Practice saying less. Before answering, ask, is this necessary? Is this strategic? If not, remain silent. Fewer words create more gravity. In conversation, speak slowly, calmly, with deliberate pauses. Let silence punctuate your meaning. People will lean in to listen. The more calmly you speak, the more your words weigh. The unbothered person doesn't compete for attention. They command it through presence. Remember, those who speak most often are rarely heard. Eighth practice, the mirror technique. When someone attempts to manipulate you emotionally, mirror their behavior internally without reacting. If they speak with aggression, observe their tone and reflect calmness. If they try to guilt trip you, respond with neutrality. Machiavelli advised rulers to let opponents expose themselves. When you refuse to mirror emotion, the manipulator loses rhythm. They stumble because their control depended on your reaction. Your stillness becomes a mirror where they see their own chaos. This is psychological Aikido. deflecting force instead of resisting it. Ninth practice, ritual of inner reset. There will be days when you fail, days when you react, when your peace collapses, when the ego wins. Machiavelli would remind you that failure is data. Do not judge, reset, sit quietly, close your eyes, and breathe as if you are sweeping the dust from your mind. Say inwardly, I begin again. Forgive yourself quickly, because guilt is another form of distraction. The goal is not perfection, it is resilience. Each reset strengthens the muscle of composure. The unbothered mind bends and returns, like bamboo in wind. 10th practice, the power of slow motion. One of the most underrated techniques for emotional mastery is slowing down your physical movements. Machiavelli observed that kings who moved calmly inspired awe. Haste revealed insecurity. Begin walking, speaking, and even reacting in slow motion. When you slow down the body, the mind follows. It sends a signal to the nervous system that there is no threat. Try this in conflict. Move deliberately. Breathe slower than the other person. Watch how their tension collapses under your calm tempo. You lead the energy of the room by mastering your own rhythm. 11th practice, the ritual of inner dialogue. Throughout the day, whisper truths to yourself the way Machiavelli whispered to princes. When you feel agitation rise, say inwardly, "This is beneath me." When insulted, think, "This is noise, not signal." When misunderstood, let them speak. "I have nothing to prove." These inner phrases are spells of composure. They realign your mind with your authority. Over time, these whispers become automatic thoughts that shield you from provocation. 12th practice, detach from outcome, focus on process. Much of your irritation comes from unmet expectations, how things should be, how people should act. Machiavelli warned that men suffer more from imagination than from reality. Shift your focus from outcome to process. Do your best and release the rest. When you detach from outcome, life loses its hooks. You work, you love, you act, but without the anxiety of control. The unbothered person acts with precision and lets destiny decide. In this state, serenity becomes strength. 13th practice, the night of closure. Before sleep, release the day completely. Machiavelli believed every ruler should end the day with balance, reviewing victories and mistakes alike with equal calm. You can do the same. Sit quietly, breathe, and visualize all interactions fading like smoke. Forgive, release, and rest. Whisper, "No one owns my peace." When you sleep in detachment, your subconscious rebuilds your inner power. You wake renewed, lighter, freer. The next day, you become harder to shake. 14th practice, the 5-minute solitude. Once a day, withdraw from everything for 5 minutes. No phone, no conversation, no noise. Sit, walk, or simply stare into the distance. This short solitude is not emptiness, it is recalibration. Machiavelli spent long hours alone, writing, reflecting, purging the world's influence from his mind. You must do the same in modern form. Solitude rebuilds emotional immunity. It reminds you that your peace does not depend on others. It depends on your connection to yourself. 15th practice, the law of the last word. Train yourself to abandon the need for the last word. This single act will liberate more energy than you can imagine. Machiavelli knew that arguments rarely change minds. They only reveal egos. When someone insists on misunderstanding you, let them. Walk away. In silence, you win. The need to be right is the most expensive addiction of the ego. Freedom begins when you let it go. Now pause, take a breath, and write this in the comments. My peace is my priority. This simple statement is not a slogan. It's the declaration of your new kingdom. From this point forward, every situation, every person, every word must pass through one question. Does this preserve or steal my peace? If it steals it, let it go. Through these 15 practices, you are not becoming indifferent, you are becoming sovereign. Machiavelli would call you the ruler of your inner republic. You are not cold, you are composed. Not distant, disciplined. The world will notice. People will sense the quiet weight in your presence. They will test you, but find no weakness to exploit. And when they cannot move you, they will begin to respect you, even in silence. This is how calmness becomes dominance. This is how stillness becomes influence. And this is how the philosophy of a Florentine strategist becomes the psychology of modern mastery. There is a moment, after all the battles, when a ruler finally understands that the greatest kingdom to govern was never outside. It was within. Machiavelli, who lived surrounded by deceit, ambition, and endless turmoil, discovered that the only true security lies in mastering one's nature. And this lesson, though written centuries ago, remains untouched by time. Because even now, in this modern age of noise and exposure, you are still surrounded by invisible wars. Wars of attention, of opinion, of emotion. Every screen, every voice, every demand is an attempt to move you, to shake you, to pull you into reaction. But the truth is this: the most dangerous person in the world is the one who cannot be moved. When you learn to remain still, the game changes. The manipulator loses control. The critic loses influence. The world that once pulled your strings begins to lose its hold. Your silence, your calmness, your presence, these become weapons of grace. Machiavelli would have called it governing by perception. But you and I can call it something simpler: governing by peace. Because when your peace becomes stronger than their noise, you have already won. Most people never reach this level. They live as open gates. Anyone can enter, disturb, and plant their chaos. But you have begun to close those gates. You've started to see that not every battle deserves your sword. Not every insult deserves your energy. Not every person deserves your access. And as you close those gates, you discover something extraordinary. The less you react, the more power you hold. Reaction is the language of the powerless. Restraint is the dialect of kings. The calm mind moves slower, but it moves with precision. And in this precision lies unshakable strength. Machiavelli once said that fortune is like a river. When it floods, it sweeps away everything unprepared. But the wise build their banks long before the storm. Your emotional discipline is that riverbank. Every pause, every breath, every silence is a stone reinforcing your inner wall. And when the flood comes, when life hurls chaos, betrayal, or criticism your way, you stand unmoved because your foundations were built in stillness. This is what it means to be unbothered. Not indifferent, but immune. Not blind to the storm, but built for it. Understand this: peace is not passivity. It is a form of authority. When you remain calm under pressure, you communicate without words. I am not controlled by circumstance. That single vibration changes everything. It intimidates manipulators, disarms aggressors, and attracts those who are aligned with your frequency. Machiavelli understood that to rule others, one must first rule perception. But modern wisdom reveals something even deeper. To rule perception, you must first rule emotion. Emotion is the weather of the soul, and most people are still praying for good weather instead of learning how to command the skies. Let me tell you a secret. Your reactions are the doorway through which others enter your energy. Every argument, every online comment, every toxic exchange, it's a transaction. They give you noise. You pay with peace. Stop paying. The moment you stop reacting, you cut off their income. Their chaos no longer has currency. They'll try harder, shout louder, provoke deeper. But when your silence becomes unshakable, they will grow exhausted. You will not. That is the quiet victory of the unbothered. At this point, your power becomes effortless. You no longer chase approval, revenge, or validation. You move through the world like a calm current, touching everything, controlled by nothing. People will start to sense it without you saying a word. They'll wonder why they can't affect you, why you always seem one step above the noise. But what they won't see is the invisible discipline behind that calmness. The morning rituals, the pauses, the emotional audits, the endless self-reflection. Your peace will look natural, but it was forged through fire. Every time you chose silence over reaction, you trained your spirit to rule. There is a subtle irony in all this. Once you no longer need control, you begin to control everything. When you are no longer desperate to be seen, people start to notice. When you stop chasing respect, it arrives quietly. When you stop proving your worth becomes undeniable. This is the Machiavellian paradox. The less you need power, the more power flows to you. Because energy follows stillness the way rivers follow gravity. Let's look at it from another angle. In nature, nothing that is calm is weak. The sea, when tranquil, hides infinite depth. The mountain, when still, carries eternity in its silence. The lion does not need to roar to prove its presence. So why should you? Calmness does not mean surrender. It means supremacy. You speak less because your silence already speaks volumes. You forgive not because you're weak, but because you're free. You ignore not because you don't care, but because your mind is too valuable to lend to chaos. This is the difference between power and performance. One is rooted, the other is reactive. Machiavelli's wisdom was not about deception. It was about control. He wrote about kings and princes, but every lesson he ever taught applies to your own kingdom, your mind. If you lose that kingdom, nothing external will save you. But if you guard it, if you build its walls from discipline, awareness, and stillness, then nothing external can destroy you. You become what ancient philosophers called autarks, self-sufficient, ungoverned by anything but your own clarity. That is the ultimate freedom. Now I want you to think of the person, the situation, or the memory that has disturbed you most. Hold it in your mind for a moment. Feel the familiar sting of it. Then breathe and whisper inwardly, "You no longer control me," because you are no longer the same person. You've learned the sacred law Machiavelli never wrote but lived, the law of emotional sovereignty. No one can bother you without your consent. No one can invade your peace without your permission. And starting today, that permission is revoked. Your calmness will not make life easier, but it will make you unshakable. People may misinterpret you. They may call you cold, detached, or arrogant. Let them. Those labels come from those who can't understand what self-control looks like. To live unbothered is to live misunderstood, and that's the price of evolution. But in the long silence of your peace, you'll feel something deeper than approval. You'll feel power. Not power over others, but power over yourself. And that, Machiavelli would say, is the only power worth having. So, as we close this journey, remember this truth. Being unbothered is not about escaping emotion. It's about mastering it. It's not about avoiding life. It's about transcending it. To be calm in a loud world is rebellion. To be still in chaos is wisdom. To smile when others try to provoke is leadership. And to remain at peace when the world expects your anger, that is divinity. If this message spoke to you, write this in the comments. My peace is my kingdom. Let it become your mantra. Say it when you wake. Say it when you're tested. Say it when the noise tries to pull you back into the old world. Because every time you repeat it, you build your fortress higher. So never let anyone bother you. Not because you're heartless, but because you're whole. Not because you don't care, but because you finally understand what deserves your care. You've outgrown reaction, and that is the rarest form of power in existence. Machiavelli would have smiled at this point. Not the smile of a schemer, but the quiet smile of someone who has seen through illusion. Because he knew, the mind that cannot be moved is the mind that moves the world. And if you've made it to the end of this journey, remember to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to reclaim their calm. You never know whose storm your stillness might heal. Until then, remain sovereign, remain calm, remain unbothered.